So who here would consider themselves a Newbro?
I'm kind of new. I've been 6 months,
Okay.
8 months in.
How many Rorq saves have you been a part of?
About
Okay, cool. So
three.
you're still somewhat new to them.
Yeah, I'm pretty new as well, I guess. I've been to no Rorq saves.
I honestly think Rorq saves are some of the most fun content in Eve. Like, you get all the excitement and complexity of a big complicated setup, but you also get it in a nice 5 minute or maybe 15 minute window. So like nothing happening, 15 minutes of really intense, complicated, cool ass combat, and then you're back to making money again. Like, I think Rorq saves are fucking awesome. Anybody else new? Yeah, Yathast? I don't recognize your name. You on comms, buddy? I guess not. What about you, Inigo?
What's up?
You a Rorq Safe Pro?
Definitely not a pro. I've been on a few, but
Or do you normally fly in them?
definitely not a pro. I've got a Ram Jag, and then I also have a Capital Alt that I'll drop
Nice.
in on them.
Got both bases covered.
Unfortunately, not so much anymore since carriers are kind of crap.
Have you been training into one of these King Crabs that my game was talking about?
I have not. I decided to go the other route and train into a fax instead. Difference between a 2-week train versus like 3 to 4 month
Yeah.
train.
Having lots of faxes, never a bad thing, right? Just have overwhelming logi. It's always useful.
True story.
Yeah, so just fly something fast. So the idea of this course here, we were just chatting in comms about a Rorq save that happened yesterday, and some people were saying that Newbros, they just get into a harpy. Before the harpy, there's nothing useful they can do. Absolutely not true. Like, harpies, capitals, obviously super useful for Rorq saves. The more of them we can have, the better. But honestly, any pilot, day one, if you come in with the right attitude, you understand what's happening ahead of time, you can be super pivotal towards either saving Rorqual or us getting kills. So just being on comms, being able to communicate clearly, and knowing what's going on is super valuable. You do not need a certain amount of skills. You do not need to be flying 3 billion ISK worth of ship. Just being competent is more than enough to be super valuable. And honestly, being competent in a cheap ship, I think personally, is more useful to me as an FC on a Rorq save than someone who is incompetent in an expensive ship.
Sorry, guys, I jumped in late. Did you guys make a new fleet? Are you guys doing anything? Or
Yeah,
we're
there's a fleet
just
up on the
talking?
Stath. Join it, and we're in PZMA. We're going to do a bit of flying around. Or if you just want to listen, that's absolutely fine too. So could you put an X in fleet, please, if you are joining us in PZMA, just so I can wait for you. Got a couple of people on the unduck already. I guess you guys are cool. Anybody else coming?
Yeah,
I'm
give
just
me a
jumping
second.
back in
Just,
it.
I need to leave the original fleet
Right.
and join this one.
So while people are getting here, I'll just talk a little bit about how Rorq saves normally work. So it sounds like a lot of you have done it before. Some of you have done it a few times. At least one chap hasn't done one at all. So Rorq saves work basically in a very kind of common pattern. So normally space is nice and clear. We're out mining, we're chatting, we're quiet, whatever, and we're watching intel. So the idea of Rorq saves is your Rorqual, when it's out in space, can mine an awful lot of ore, but it's also stuck in place for 5 minutes. Or in fact, that's gone up now. Is it 6 minutes now? Oh no, the invulnerability's gone down, hasn't it? The panic has decreased. Is that right? I've not Rorq mined for a while. Some numbers changed recently, but the effective mechanic is your ship can't move for 5 minutes. So that means enemies can come and tackle you real quick. So normally they will come in, they'll tackle you. A ship will be tackled for a short period of time. Then all their friends come in and try and kill them before we can save them. They have a panic button, so it means if they have a Rorq locked, they can make themselves invulnerable for a short period of time, a few minutes. It's our responsibility as the fleet to get there and save them before that time has elapsed so that they don't die. Normally when this happens, we're in impasse here. Impasse is really good space. No one can bridge on top of us, so no one has a Titan in range normally to be able to Titan bridge on top of us, which means they normally come out of wormholes. This means that we go from there being no one in our area to there being a large number of people just appear out of nowhere. They just come in through a wormhole. So for example, right now we've got eyes in all our little pocket down here in the south, and let's say someone appears in Rorq. We can then infer that if they didn't come from NTAC 7, Rorq has a wormhole in it. That's useful information. First off, we see this person come in, and the first thing that's going to happen is the fleet's going to try and find out what ship they're in. If they're in like a frigate PvP thing, it means they're probably just trying to kill VNIs. If they're in a hunting ship, so let's say they're in a Tengu, there's a good chance they're going to be a hunter for a bomber fleet or some kind of big fleet behind them. The moment we see that come in, we can be pretty sure we're going to get tackled, or they're going to try and tackle us. People will try and deactivate their industrial cores and get off grid, but they may not be able to. So we actually have a lot more time than a panic to get on board. And while this is happening, if you're in comms, if you want to participate to this fleet, first thing you guys need to start doing is getting into your ships for the role you're trying to fulfill. Now let's say hypothetically you're just brand new day one newbies, you don't have harpies, you don't have dictators, you don't have capitals, you just got a frigate. So there's a couple of options of things you can do here. First thing is figure out what that ship is. So if a ship came into system, a Tengu came into system for example, we may see it and then it disappears. Like we don't have eyes everywhere. If you hear it's jumping from NTAC 7 to Rorq, you can jump through and you can follow it around. You just having eyes on that ship is really useful. You can tell rorquals where they are. If we have multiple rorquals in system, it lets us know ahead of time which one's going to get tackled. For example, do you guys have the Dotland map up right now?
Yes.
Yeah. I've just linked it in
No,
if you guys
okay.
don't. This map, super useful. This is like pretty much every time I'm in Impasse, I have this map open and I'm looking at it. This is useful for two things. It means you can look where enemies are going to be going, and if you hear someone say system on comms, you know the best way of getting to it. I don't know about you guys, I don't memorize this, I can't memorize this, I just have it open and use it as reference. So let's say someone in Intel reports an enemy appears in Rorq, and let's say we're in PZMA now. First thing you can do is start burning TWJ and then Rorq. If you see the bad guy, you can say on comms where he is. Let's say he jumps into TWJ. Now, keep in mind, you're a frigate and he's a Tengu, he'd probably kick your ass. This guy isn't going to try and engage you though, this guy's out here to hunt rorquals. So you can safely follow this guy around. If you walk gate to gate to gate, you can be real confident there's no bubbles, because it's our space. And if he does lock you up, you just jump through the gate. So you can just follow this guy around with pretty much immunity. The only time you may lose him is if he doesn't warp directly to a gate. Let's say he warps from the TWJ gate rather than warping to 442, he warps to an asteroid belt. Now if he does that, you've already slowed him down because he's not going directly to where the rorquals are, he's bouncing around. So your goal early on as a scout in this situation is to figure out where this guy's going. Let's say he goes TWJ and then the bad guy goes to 442. That means the rorquals in PZMA are a lot safer now. It also means that anyone in 9ZFH or ZTACN might want to pucker their buttholes a little bit because they're maybe about to get tackled. But we already know ahead of time where these things are going. You knowing that he has already gone to 442, so he came in from Rorq, he went to 442. This means that we can now get dictators into 442 on the TWJ gate. Because we know this guy went in through 442 and he's on his own, if he has any friends coming in behind him, they're going to be coming from Rorq into 442. If we get dictators into TWJ and bubble up, we've just bought our rorquals an extra maybe 60 seconds, which might be the difference between them getting off grid and not. Does that make sense? So just you immediately being able to get in a fast ship, get eyes on the enemy and follow them around has meant rorquals don't get tackled. And you can do that by just being in comms. Now if you're in a Saber, that's super useful as well, but you can do that just by providing eyes. Second thing you can do is fit a Cyno to your ship. So I'm going to link here the fit I'm using right now. This is my Cyno Atron. So that Cyno Atron there goes at 4.2 meters per second. Yeah, 4,086 meters per second. It is hyperspatial fit, so it can warp real fast, and it has a Cyno on it, which means I can light a Cyno when I'm in fleet with the friendlies and bring in our hostiles. So for example, let's say we've got a bad guy came in from the Rorq gate, he burnt down through TWJ 442 9ZFH, warped into the rorquals and bubbled up the rorqual. So that rorqual's tackled now, and we can really predict bad guys are going to come in behind him. So if you can get on grid with that rorqual, even if that rorqual is not paying attention, if that guy gets Sino inhibit, anything bad like that, if you're on grid with him, you can light a Sino and you can bring in friendlies to help him. Just you being in that position, super, super useful. Does that make sense?
So this is something that we could just buy here. I noticed when I was looking at some of the fits, some of the parts you can buy here, and then you have to go to GE to get the parts. I think that's part of the problem too when we're trying to get some of the Doctrine fits. Not everything is available down here, because yesterday.
This isn't a Doctrine fit. This is just kind of this very niche case of I want to be in something cheap, something fast, and something that I can contribute to. So a Harpy you should always be able to buy here. Like, so Harpy is a Doctrine fit. This fit here, the important modules, so I kind of talk through the various modules and what they do, because you can apply this concept to anything. You can chain one of these together real quick. So initially we're starting out with a frigate. It's a Tech 1 frigate. It's cheap, it's fast. You can use pretty much any Tech 1 frigate. Every race has one fast frigate. They're normally the best ones, the Atron equivalents. So you've got the Atron, you've got the Cormorant, you've got the Rifter, and what's the Amar one?
The Slasher?
Slasher, thank you. So those 4 frigates, real quick, good starts. Second module of interest is the micro warp drive. So I've got a quad lift micro warp drive here. Any 5MN micro warp drive will do. I've got a scram, I've got a web. This might be useful, maybe under some circumstances. Maybe if you catch a basilisk off grid, you can tackle him. Realistically, you're not here to tackle in this ship. They're just optional. So if you don't have them, it doesn't matter. Likewise in the lows, I've got a nanofiber, makes me go a little bit faster. Faster's good. I've got a damage control, makes me a little bit tankier. Again, tank's good. And a inertial stabilizer, makes me align quicker, makes me get off gates a little faster. All those modules, nice to have, slightly improve the ship, but irrelevant. If all you've got an Atron and a Sino, you're good to go. Sino is obviously useful because I can call in reinforcements with it. I can call in, I don't know, 10,000 DPS by lighting that module. Don't have any guns on here, I don't need them. You've got the Sino. If you don't have the Sino, you don't have the skills, for whatever reason, you can still get in position, you can still feed intelligence. Feeding intelligence is super important in Rorqual saves. Finally, in my rigs, I've got these hyperspatials. They allow me to warp faster. So I can warp from PZMA, where we are now, down to 9ZFH real quick. Any questions about the fit there?
I do have a question. It's kind of a silly question. With the Sino, yesterday we had these guys, they jumped in. We were getting ready to use the Sino, but I wasn't sure exactly what to do now. Like, I assumed that the Titan was the bridge for the Sino. I went to about 6,000 off it. I seen everybody else jump and I was still in system. Like, how would I, because I'm not sure exactly what to do when there's a situation where we need to jump. How do I jump?
Yeah, okay, good question. So there's 2 kind of things we're going to be talking about here. There's going to be using a Sino to call a bridge. So the mechanics work by a Titan and a Black Ops battleship have a module called a jump bridge. A jump portal generator, I think it's actually called, but bridge is normally the term we use. It can, so we normally use a Titan to move subcaps from anywhere from where they are in a certain system to within 5 AUs. So from PZMA, that's like most of Impasse. It's not quite all of Impasse, but it's most of Impasse. The way that works is another ship has to go to a different system, activate their Sino module. So that's the module I've got fit on my ship here. That Sino module will activate, and it will only activate if your ship is moving less than 500 meters a second. So you need to be going fairly slow to activate it. When you turn it on, it will stay activated for 10 minutes. For that 10 minutes, your ship can't move. That obviously makes you a bit of a target, but we're in a 1 million-esque ship here, so it doesn't matter. If you can call in the Sino bridge, you're good to go. The person lighting the Sino will coordinate with the FC, so they will tell the FC where they are. The FC will probably tell them to get to a specific position. They will then, when the FC tells them, light their Sino. The Titan then can right-click on their capacitor and click bridge to and the name of the pilot who lit his Sino. So they can then open a jump portal bridge to that ship in a different system. Then any other subcap who's within 2,000 kilometers, 2,500 kilometers maybe, of the Titan can right-click the Titan and they'll have an option which is jump through to whatever system. So jump through to 9ZFH. I think the reason you couldn't jump in that situation, you said you were 6 kilometers away, you need to be within 2,000, 2,500. Normally what we do in this situation, if you're bridging, you'll undock and you need to keep at range 1,000 from the Titan. So normally what happens is, like, this is a Keep Star World bridge from. You're on dock. You can warp to that Ansplex jump bridge over there that I just broadcast, or the Satoya. Just warp off to a different system, and then right-click warp to the Titan, which is normally above the Keep Star here, at 0. Or 1,000. You warp to them, you keep at range 1,000, and you just wait. The FC will tell you when they're about to bridge. FC will normally say bridge up, jump, jump, jump. When that happens, you right-click jump through. You get about 30 seconds to do that. There's a good chance that the Sino will immediately explode, so you have to be really quick. If it's a nice safe cycle, like a rorqual, you'll have 30 seconds, and then potentially the bridge will go up again a few minutes later if you miss it. But just try and kind of work under the assumption that the Sino will immediately explode, so you've got to be real quick jumping through it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
One
thank you very
question.
much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why I hear this a lot. Why do I need to keep range at 1,000 when like waiting for the Titan to open up the bridge?
Very good question. This is really historic at this point. So back in the day before Citadels, the way this would work is you'd bridge to a Titan who was in a pause. So I don't know if you guys remember pauses. They were like big spheres of shields. The way it would work back in the day is the Titan would be in a pause, and they'd move themselves to be right on the edge of the shield. So they're inside the shield, so they're safe, but they're right on the edge of the shields. And normally the whole fleet wouldn't be able to get inside the shield. So if I had my Titan, I maybe wouldn't trust you guys. I wouldn't trust you suckers with my dangerous Titan. So I would position myself right on the inside of the shield, and I have you warp right to the outside of the shield. So you can still bridge through, but you can't actually attack me. So if you were a spy or whatever, I'd still be safe. Back in the day, if you used to walk to the Titan at 0, you could bump it, so you could move the Titan. Now, you're real small and the Titan's real big, so you don't move it much, but you can move it enough to either bump it out of the pause or bump it back behind the pause shield so that no one else can bridge to it. Today, on a keep style like this, you ain't bumping that Titan nowhere. Like, that's not a concern. Even if you ran at that max speed with a Macarial, the Titan pilot would just dock up. Like, you're not bumping him anywhere. It's more of a historic thing. Right-click keep at range 1,000 is just the thing people have been saying for the last 10 years. Bumping Titans, some Titan pilots may consider it rude. It's not actually a big deal, but that's normally what people say. If you keep it range at 0, no one's going to mind. Does that make sense?
I see. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Used to be a big deal, isn't anymore. Okay, right. So let's do a little bit of a simulation right now. Let's do a little bit of a pretend. So let's say that we're just chilling. You're doing whatever, doing your business around PZMA, and you're sat outside in your Atron hanging out. And you hear someone on comms say, Vortec M, we've had a Weathorn Volta Saber come in through a wormhole. Like, oh shit, like bad things have happened. So you can assume here that shit's about to pop off and you wanna go and help. So let's, in this situation, do that. So let's go from PZMA to 9ZFH. So we think, or we know, our dude's in 9ZFH, got a Saber on him, he's going to get tackled. We want to be first people on grid. We want to be feeding intel to the FC. So this situation right now, hopefully we've got an FC on comms. That FC is going to be trying to figure out, okay, what rorquals are in space right now. If you're a rorqual pilot, you'll be saying to the FC, oh, I'm in 9ZFH, grid's clear. Another one might be saying, I'm in PZMA, 2 minutes left on timer. And the FC is going to be trying to get together with who's where, so they know who might be getting tackled. While this is happening, they'll be forming up. They'll be sending a ping, maybe. So they'll be pinging catch. They'll be telling people to get into harpies. They'll be getting capitals undocked. They'll be organising shit. Now, that FC probably won't be able to get eyes on that grid. They're not going to know exactly what's going on with that Saber, and that's where we come in as these fast-moving recon people. So, right now, guys, you've heard there's someone in 9ZFH getting tackled. What I want you to do is move yourself as quickly as possible into 9ZFH and find the rorqual in whatever belt he's in and get on grid with him. So, first thing you do, look at the map, see where you're going. Next system's TWJ, so everyone fast burn to TWJ. Get your ass into TWJ.
Warp drive active.
And the quicker you can do this, the better. I've got my hyperspatials fit. That makes me warp real fast. I've got my inertial stabilizers on the low. Makes me align real quick. If you can fly an interceptor, interceptors are awesome for this. Interceptors don't have to worry about bubbles. And I'll talk about why that's important in a minute.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I could fit my interceptor with like a probe scanner to scan ships down and stuff like that, but I guess that's not really important. Can I fit a Sino on it then?
You can. You absolutely can. So there's things to consider here. There's pros and cons. So pro of an interceptor warps really fast. That's nice, not actually that important. We're not going that far. The difference isn't huge. That's not the big deal. The big deal about an interceptor is its interdiction nullified, and that matters in a very specific situation. I'll talk about that in a little minute when we're on grid with the rorquals. The downside of the interceptor is it's quite expensive. It's a 30 million-isk ship. There's a good chance if you light a sino on that ship, it's going to die. You can fit a probe launcher to an interceptor, but you normally need to fit Sisters combat probe launchers, and they're expensive. So you're going to lose like a 100 million-isk ship. It's probably not worth it. Guys, warp into 9ZFH, but don't go anywhere from there. Let's say the Rorqual pilot in this situation is just like real shit. He's AFK, he's gone making dinner, he's not doing his job properly as a Rorqual. But we're going to save his ass because we're good people like that. So jump into 9ZFH and just hold the game. So we think there's going to be a Rorqual in 9ZFH. We don't know for sure. We know the bad guys came into here. That Rorqual's not on comms for whatever reason. So first thing we do is scan the belt. We can scan the descan system, see if we can see a Rorqual. We can't. I'm assuming there is Rorquals mining in here. So they're not in the enormous, they're not in the colossal. They're probably in a large asteroid cluster. So what I did there was I opened my descan. I pressed descan, full 14.3 descan range. I scanned through. There was no Rorqual on scan there. I then looked at the belt. So I'm assuming there is a Rorquals in the system. I looked at the belts. The colossal asteroid belt is 5 AU away from us. The enormous is 2.59. So if there was a Rorqual in either of them, we would have seen it. The large asteroid cluster, 18.7 away. That's outside of my descan range. So I'm making an assumption now, pretty quickly, that if we've got Rorquals, they're in that asteroid belt. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand how I did that?
Yeah.
Cool. So I don't.
No, say it again because I'm kind of slow. So again, we arrive in this system. We use the descan.
Yep, so we're going to use our descan. We put it on a full range, full 360-degree scan, do a scan. So I'm looking for Rorquals here. I'm kind of made the assumption that we've got a hostile Rorqual, a friendly Rorqual in the system, and who's about to get tackled. He's not on my descan, so you scroll through, there's no Rorqual in here. So what I now know is, assuming that there is a Rorqual in the system, he must be over 14.3 AU away, because that's the maximum distance I can scan. I then look through the asteroid belts in the probe scanner window, and saw the colossal and the enormous, which are the two main things people go to, are pretty close to us, so there can't be one in there. But the large, which is the third one that we normally mine in, is a long way away. So if there is one, he's probably in that belt. Does that make sense?
I see. Yes, it
cool.
does.
So at this point, I don't know for sure there is one in there, but we can go find out, right? It takes me no time at all to go warp to that thing, find out. Now, let's say there's bad guys there, maybe a hostile saber. The hostile saber might be on that belt at 0 with a bubble up who can just catch us and kill us. And if we die, we're bad scouts, right? If you're dead, you're giving no intel. So what we're going to do is we're going to warp to that belt at 100 kilometers. So everyone just warp to that belt at 100 kilometers. So that's the large potential asteroid cluster. Okay, is anybody not in warp to this thing?
Yeah, I went the wrong way.
Okay, right, so we've landed on grid here. There is actually no Rorqual here. Do we have no Rorquals in the system?
Not that I can see.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right, let's pretend there's a Rorqual in this belt. So what we've done here is we warped to it from the gate at 100 kilometers. Now, the asteroid belts are normally quite big. If you look at this here, there's that kind of green thing in the middle. That's kind of the 0 point on the asteroid belt. But if you look where the actual asteroids are, they're spotted all around. Oh, God. Okay, this is a good example of how not to die to things. So rats came at us.
Yeah, so get
out.
out.
Get moving, get your micro warp drive on, burn away from them. There's no reason that we as fast frigates should die to any of these things. Just get moving, keep moving. Great advice in Eve. If you're on grid with a hostile enemy, either align out to something safe or be burning very fast a long way away from them. So the actual radius of this this asteroid belt is quite big. So normally the hostile saber, for example, would warp to them at 0 and then burn up to the Rorqual, tackle them, bubble them, do all that business. If we warp to the system from 0, warp to the gate if we warp to the asteroid belt from the gate, we're going to land in a very predictable line, right? We're going to land somewhere on the line from that green thing in the middle to 100 kilometers away from that towards the gate. Now that's potentially dangerous. If there are, for example, a bunch of Munins here, or a bunch of any kind of things that are good at killing frigates, so they've got a Cerberus with them, or they've got a bubble up, we could get dragged into that bubble, land in the bubble at 0, have an enemy ship tackle us and kill us, and we just immediately die. That's the one time when an interceptor is really useful over like an Atron for this situation, because the interceptor will be able to warp at 100. We will only be able to warp at wherever that bubble is. That's the only difference. Now, what we can do is come at it from a different angle. So let's say we think they may have put a catch bubble between the asteroid warping point and the gate. So they've maybe put a bubble 50 kilometers off between the two things. Now, once someone's on grid, someone who competent is on grid, who understands how bubble mechanics work, this whole thing becomes a lot more easy. Because we can now say, okay, does anybody here not understand catch bubble mechanics? Would anyone like me to go through that real quick?
Yeah, I know, like, if you fly into them, you're in trouble. Out of them. An interceptor, I know, can warp out, depending on the interceptor. I've never understood, like, if you're at a gate and there's a bubble up, can you actually warp out, or you would be in trouble if you're an interceptor?
An interceptor, so a tackle interceptor, can absolutely warp away if they're in a bubble. No one else can. The other mechanic that's of interest is understanding how drag and catch bubbles work.
It's like if you are in the same line with your warp line, and like the bubble is ahead or behind you when you arrive, you actually get stuck in that so you don't arrive to your destination, but rather in the bubble or something like that. I read it on the wiki.
Did we have a Saber with us in this field a second ago?
Yes.
Saber, would you mind? It was Abigail, is that you?
Yeah.
Would you mind warping to the large asteroid cluster at 0 and doing like a catch bubble towards the gate? Like do a 100 kilometers catch bubble. Guys, warp yourselves back to the 442 gate. We'll do a worked example.
Warp drive
Here,
active.
let me warp back and then warp him.
So a real good person here, like a real good hostile fleet, is going to anticipate that we're going to try and get harpies or scouts or cynos into them. So rorqual saves, the way they normally work is, they'll tackle the rorqual. The rorqual has 60 seconds to light its cyno. All rorquals should light their cyno immediately on being tackled before the cyno inhib goes up. At that point, there's a module called a cyno inhibitor. It takes 60 seconds to activate, and it means you can't light a cyno within 100 kilometers of that module. So what that means is we can now no longer bring in reinforcements directly on top of the rorqual. We've got to bring them off the rorqual, move them. We need a second cyno in position. It gets a lot more complicated, and this is the thing we mess up a lot. So you guys understanding how to get that second cyno in position when the cyno inhibit's up, super valuable. So normally what happens is bad guys will come in, they'll tackle the rorqual, they'll drop a cyno inhibitor. That cyno inhibitor will anchor 60 seconds later. If the rorqual hasn't lit its cyno by that time, that rorqual can now no longer light its cyno. That means that we need to get a second cyno in position and kill the cyno inhib and bring in reinforcements. The way we normally do that, we get a second ship, like ourselves here, to warp maybe 120 kilometers away from the rorqual, get their velocity down to about 500 meters per second, light their cyno. We then bring in 3 or 4 carriers onto the cyno 120 off. Those carriers kill the cyno inhibitor. Once the cyno inhibitor's down, the rorqual lights his tackle, lights his cyno, and then all the tackle and all the faxes jump into the rorqual and save him. Does that
catch bubbles up?
Thank you.
I have a question. What is the range of the cyno inhibitor?
It's 100 kilometers. So you want to be like 120 off it just to make sure you're safe. If you're too far off it, it takes a long time for the friendly fighters to burn in to kill the cyno inhib, but it's better to be further away than not far enough. Just you want a bit of leeway there. Okay, so what we would normally do in this situation is we'd warp to that belt at 100. We would burn away a little bit. We'd light our cyno. We'd be communicating with the FC the whole time. They'd cyno in the carriers. But Abigail, our friend Abigail here, has lit a drag bubble. So if you guys walk back to that large asteroid cluster at 0, you'll get...
This is not going to affect me.
Yes, it won't infect the interceptor. This is important. This is the important part. So a good fleet will anticipate that we'll need to do this. If they've managed to get the cyno inhib up, they'll anticipate we need to bring in a second cyno. So right now, we've landed directly in these bubbles. We've got Abigail here bubbling them, and they're going to have some anti-tackle. We land 0 velocity, a very predictable position. They go pop, pop, pop. They kill us all. We instantly die. We now need to get a second cyno in. All this time, the rorqual's time is ticking down. He's getting shot at. Bad things are happening. So we need to avoid this happening. There are.
So I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I noticed you guys are further away, so that means you guys got dragged into the bubble, but I
Correct.
ended up at 0.
So you're the
Okay.
interceptor. Yeah, the crow landed where we should have landed, where we all said we wanted to land at 0. We all got dragged behind that position. It's what they call a drag bubble. We got pulled out of position into where the enemy wanted us to be, and we would potentially die in this situation. You could also have put the bubbles in front, so kind of the other side of where we warped, and we would have got stopped there. Either way, we're getting stopped in places other than where we want to be.
If in this particular situation, if I warp in 100 kilometer away from the asteroid bed, would it drag back me or like?
Yep, we would land in the exact same position. Basically, there was nowhere we could have warped, no range we could have warped to this asteroid belt where we wouldn't have got caught in these bubbles.
So how do we avoid something like this? We're flanking.
Very good question. Okay, so
warping in from a different angle.
Yep, there are 3 things you can do. So number 1, if you've got eyes on grid, there's always going to be a rorqual there. Those eyes can tell you if there's a bubble. And it's very important you understand how these mechanics work because you can get a fleet killed by messing this up. So we're on grid right now. And let's say the FC asks us, is it safe to warp from the 442 gate to 9ZFH? What we can say is, I'm on grid. We're going to look from our position now. We're going to point the camera to the 442 gate. So Shift C to the if you press Shift C, your camera follows whatever you got selected. We're going to select the 442 gate. So we can look where that gate is. We can look where the bubble is, and we can look where the exit of the warp point is. So we can now say when that bubble was up a second ago. Abigail, would you mind bubbling again if possible?
Yeah, give me a sec.
Sure thing. We can say no, it's not safe. There's a drag bubble there. So someone being on grid giving you intel. If you know there's no bubbles up, you can warp in, you're fine. If you are on grid, you can see bubbles, you can say it's not fine. Next thing to do is say, okay, how do we do this safely? So one option, be an interceptor. So one thing we could do is have an interceptor, like a crow, warp at 100, burn away a little bit, light a Sino, boom, we're in a great position, we've got Sino up. Slightly expensive ship, but it's worth it to get the carriers in, to get the Sino inhib killed, to kill the Sino inhib, save the Rorqual. Other option is warping from an angle. So let's get a drag bubble up here, and we'll eyeball how to do this.
Yeah, by the way, I just tested it. Yes, I get dragged into it if I warp 100 kilometer.
Yeah, so this is a super useful technique for attackers to use because it means they know where reinforcements are coming from. There's only one gate we could come from. It's 442. They know where we're coming from. They know where we're going. We're going to warp to it at 0. We're going to land where they want us to, and they'll have ships waiting to kill us. We just instantly die if we land in that bubble and they're prepared. So what we can do is come at it from a different angle. So let's say we know there's a drag bubble here because someone on grid's told us, or in fact we've just landed in it and died and told the FC that. Next person coming in after us knows there's somewhere else. So what we're looking for is a different angle we can warp from where we're not going to get caught in this bubble. So I'm going to broadcast a asteroid belt there. So planet 7 belt 3. If you guys look at that thing, that's kind of like 90 degrees off. So if we warp back to the 442 gate, warp to the asteroid belt and warp back here, we won't get stuck in the bubble.
Warp drive active.
Now keep in mind, what we want to do here is not necessarily land on the asteroid belt at 0. We want to land at the asteroid belt at a safe position. So we want to land 100 kilometers off it, ideally away from any bad guys. So what I'm doing right now is I'm warping back to the 442 gate. And because I know there's a bubble there, or I suspect there's a bubble there, I'm not warping to that belt at 0. I'm instead going to warp to this asteroid belt, which I broadcasted. That's going to drag me out to the side, and I'm going to come in at an angle. So I'm still going to warp to that belt at 100 kilometers, and that's going to hopefully land me a bit of a distance away from the bad guys. That gives me a few seconds to turn my micro warp drive on, pull a bit more range, and then start feeding intel back to the FC about what's going on that grid, what the bad guys are, what they're killing, what's going on.
So ideally, whenever we land on grid, we want to land at 100 so we could start burning away to light the Sino.
Exactly, because you don't know what's going on. If you warp at 100 and you're like, oh, I do actually want to be at 0, you burn 50 away and you warp back. Warping at 100 is good because it gives you some time. It means if there's bad guys there, they're probably not going to be in range of you. So warp yourself back to the asteroid belt at 100, and we'll avoid that drag bubble. So if you've got a cloak on your ship, you might want to pull some range and cloak. This is good if you've got multiple accounts open, for example. So right now we're not in that drag bubble. They're all sat there waiting for us 130 32 kilometers away trying to kill us. We're just going to turn our prop mods on and burn this direction. Now we're going 4k a second directly away from them. Maybe the first cycle you want to overheat your prop mod if you're a little close, but once you're away, you're burning off, and they're just going to ignore you because they're not going to try and kill you. They're busy trying to kill that rorqual. And right now, so guys, prop mods on, burn away. Let's get some distance away from them. So right now we can look what's on grid. We can maybe do a D-scan, feed a D-scan to the FC. Do you guys know how to do a D-scan?
Yes, I do. Not sure about others.
Okay, so this is the site I like at the moment. dscan.info. If you go to that website, you do a D-scan, and I like to do this at range maybe 1 AU, 360 degrees, click scan. It's going to show you all the ships around you. You click in your D-scan window, Control A, Control C to copy them, paste them into that web page, click submit, and then the link at the top, you paste that in fleet. Getting a good D-scan, super useful. The earlier we get a D-scan of the enemy fleet, the better. If we can get them as they come in from their gate, from their wormhole, or get them on a gate, that's perfect. This allows us to for the FC to know when it's safe for us to go in, whether we want to wait longer, whether we want to call test for like super reinforcements. The quicker we get this D-scan, the better we can deal with things. Okay, any questions about that?
Okay,
With
so
this-
from...
No,
Okay,
go-
so
go
from
ahead.
the... No, you go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So from the beginning, I see a ping on Slash that Rorq is tracked. Is it more frigid? Just go to this system as fast as possible and like get here to make a D-scan and post it on like Fleet or like Catch or
Absolutely.
whatever.
That's
Is
absolutely useful. If you can make yourself known to the FC, that you're in a frigate, you've got a Sino, what system you're in, and that you can feed them intel, that's super useful. They can tell you where to go, where they want eyes, because it might be they already know. Let's say the rorqual pilot's really good. It's like an experienced rorqual pilot. We already have this grid covered. What they might want you to do is, let's say, for example, the situation we talked about, we had a hostile Saber come in, tackle the rorqual. So we already know what the rorqual's got on him, but we know what system they came through. We could tell you to move to maybe TWJ on the Fortec M gate, sit there, wait for the hostiles to come in and de-scan them as they enter system. That means we see them before they're even on grid with the enemy because there's even more time. Just make yourself known to the FC that you are a competent player who is in a fast ship with a Sino. You can
Can
never
I ask
have
a
too much
question
intel.
about mechanics?
Sorry, could you ask that again, please?
Some issues reporting stuff? Because there's 3 ways that I know of to report. One is to type in fleet, one is to whisper, and the other one is to shout. I did a few fleets with shatter, and shouting sometimes is not good.
Yeah, Shattered gets very...
Level you should be reporting stuff.
I think it really depends on the FC, personally. And this is hard. Shattered is... he's an emotional man, especially when it pops off. He gets a bit yelly. He gets a little flustered, does young Shattered.
Well, I like him. I like him
Oh, no,
because
he's
I
great. He's a really
immediately
good
know
FC, but he does get a
if
bit
what I'm
irritable.
saying is important or not. Because if he goes, "Thank you very much," you know it was important. If he tells you to stay off comms, you know it's not so important.
Pretty much. And a lot of the skill in Eve, a lot of the skill in being a good scout is knowing exactly that. It's knowing what the FC needs to know, and that's only something that comes with practice. If there's lots and lots of people giving lots of intel, and you have some intel that you think they may already know, keep quiet. If you think you've got some intel that they don't know, it's important for you to tell the FC. Personally, me, I don't. When I'm FCing, I don't read fleet chat. I don't read fleet chat. I also don't want someone whispering to me. In a proper fleet, a Stradot fleet, we'd be in command comms, and normally in command comms, there was a special channel for kind of FC support people to sit in there and feed intel. And normally in a proper fleet, if you were a good recon pilot, I would drag you up there and you could whisper to me directly. And basically, the point of that is we can talk over the main fleet and you can feed me exactly the intel we need.
Well, when I said whisper, what I meant was normally I report on my whisper key, which is below the command channel. And there's usually 4 Ohm or Abigail or somebody with a lot more experience than me in there. And I usually report it there, and if it's important, they tell me to tell the FC, or they'll actually report it themselves to try and stay off the command channel, because I know that gets very confusing if there's if there's more than one fleet.
Yes, and that's really the big case in the big fleet. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Normally in the big fleets, like the big, legacy fleets, an FC has 3 comms open at once. So they've got the main fleet where anyone shouts they can hear. They've got the command channel, which will normally have between like 2 and 5 people in it, and that's people helping them, scout, sinos, recon, secondary FCs, talking to them. There's also a third channel, which is legacy, which is on Discord, which is other fleet commanders, i.e. fleets coordinating with each other. And it gets real complicated, especially if ProGod's there. ProGod is a real yelly man. He gets very excited. So normally in those fleets, we don't want people shouting from the main comms, because it just gets too hectic. Rorq saves are different though. Rorq saves, we have a flat command structure. There is command channels for Rorq saves for impasse. We tend not to use them though. And we tend not to use them specifically because it's not structured. I don't know where my intel's coming from as an FC. So in a main fleet, I know... So in a big complicated fleet, the FC knows more than a line member. They've got recon people who've been sat in systems for hours. They've got spies feeding them intel. They've got other fleets telling them what's going on. The FCs know more than a fleet member. In a Rorq save, that's not the case. In a Rorq save, everyone knows something because, as we are doing now, we've burnt out to a system. We know what's going on. It's not prepared. We've not had time to set up. So we want intel coming from everywhere. So in a Rorq save, it's a flat command structure. Everyone just talks to us. Does that make sense? I think what's important in a Rorq save is, or in any fleet actually, if you're giving intel, is brevity. You need to be able to very concisely, as quickly as possible, get on comms, say the intel you've got, and get off comms so other people can speak. So, for example, let's say we are in system here. You may say, FC on grid with hostiles, 150 off, descan inflate, and then you stop talking. That is a very quick way of giving you intel. Let's say we were in Fortec M and we see things coming through to TWJ. You'd say, FC, I'm on the TWJ gate in Fortec M. We've got +4 Lokis in system. That's kind of good intel. The other mistake a lot of people make when they give intel is we know what system we're in now, and we don't relay that when we're given the intel. So we may say things like FC +7 Lokis in system. The FC might be in a different system to you. They might not know where you are. They might not remember that. You need to give explicit intel. So you need to say FC +3 Lokis and IZFH. Does that make sense? I still got you guys on the comms? Anybody? Hello? Oh, you can hear me. Okay, everyone stop talking. That was weird. Okay, so we're on grid here. This bad guy is in system. Let's say that... can we warp to those things? No. Let's say that there's a rorqual in the middle. In fact, I'm going to be the rorqual in the middle. So imagine my little atrium here is a rorqual, and I'm tackled, and I'm bad, and a sino inhib went up, and I didn't get my sino up in time. So normally I wouldn't be on this thing at 0. I'd be maybe up a little bit, so I'd maybe be like 100 kilometers up. What you can do now is provide that first sino to get us in position. So I spoke about this a little bit earlier. I'll go over the mechanics again. If a sino inhib is up when I'm tackled, I can't light my sino, which means we can't bring in reinforcements to save me. What you guys need to do is light a secondary sino over 100 kilometers away from me. Make sure the FC knows about that. They're going to sino in people on top of it, carriers. Those carriers are going to kill the sino inhib, and then the Rorq will light a sino, and more people will come in on the Rorq to save the day. So your job here will be to warp to me at 100 kilometers, burn away a little bit, light a sino, and try and do that as quickly as possible while communicating with the FC. So you want to be maybe 200, 300 kilometers away, just chilling, until you see what's going on. You want to warp in, burn away, light a sino, and make sure the FC knows that's happening. So basically you're waiting for the FC to tell you to do that. So if you guys have a Sino, now's a great opportunity to test that. Keep in
Do you
mind,
want to?
keep in mind when you're doing this, where the bubbles are on grid. So if Abigail's here, Abigail, could you bubble up a second?
Yep.
So if
Just
anyone
what I
were
was
to walk
asking.
to me now, you'd get caught in this bubble. And maybe that's fine, depends what's on grid. If it's a lot of things that are scary to frigates, you don't want to do that. You'll die. You might want to burn in instead. If it's kind of big things that you think you can burn away from quick enough, that's another option. But they're going to want to kill you because they know that's where the reinforcements are. So go ahead, Sal.
Just one question. Would it be better to be like 160, 170 off? That way they can actually warp to you if they wanted to after landing on the Sino?
Yeah, that's an option. That's fine. Realistically, though, warping caps in a Rorq save is a bad move. Once a cap's on grid, you tend not to move them around much. Those capitals are going to sit there until we're done. They're either going to get off grid, ideally, or they're going to just sit there and we might have to bring in more faxes to get them. You want to be at least 100, maybe a little further off is better. The FC will probably tell you. Personally, 120 is what I'd call. It just shortens that time. Also keep in mind, guys, the way Sino inhibs work, they basically have no shield HP, they have no armor HP, all the HP's in the hull. That means you can kill them even if they're getting reps. So if you're a rorqual and you're tackled, you drop heavy drones and you start killing that Sino inhib. Because even if no one tells you to, you can probably hammer through it eventually. Which means that if we get popped here trying to get this second Sino in position, you've got options. That's a Sino inhib someone dropped in fleet. Make sure you have Sino inhibs on your overview. That's another tip. The final thing I want to talk about is the kind of the egress. So let's say you guys do this, you light your Sino, you get the carriers in, carriers kill the Sino inhib, main fax fleet drops, carriers drop, Rorq will save, the bad guys immediately run away. Our job is not done. At this point, the enemy is running away, and we've gone from a defensive position to an offensive position. Our goal now is to try and get as many of these juicy Loki kills as we possibly can. So to do this, what we need to do is know where they're going and slow them down. If we know they came from Fortec M, one thing you can do is get in a cheap scanning ship, move to Fortec M. If they came from a wormhole, you quickly get your core probes out, you scan down that wormhole, you warp to it at 0, and you make sure the FC knows you're at that place at 0. If you can sit there cloaked, even better. If you've got a dictator, move a dictator to that position cloaked, or tell the FC so they can get another dictator to that position cloaked. If they came in from Fortec M in a wormhole, and we have a dictator there, and you're sat there in a scanning ship with a Sino on your ship, they can't leave through that hole anymore. If they try to leave through that hole, they're going to have a bad day, which means they've basically got a safe log. Likewise, if you can see them moving through systems, you can get into position. Let's say we see them run from 9ZFH to 442. We know they're going to be in TWJ next. You get yourself into TWJ on a Fortec M gate. You sit there, you tell the FC you're ready. Once we see them walk from TWJ to Fortec M, you sign up, we reposition our capitals, or maybe we call in more capitals, or maybe we do another bridge of subcaps. We can catch them on that gate. So basically, if you can see them exit warp towards Fortec M, you can sign up, get support in position, and catch them as they land on that gate. Your ability to move fast, provide intel, put bubbles into places, scan things down, real useful. Alright, that's basically all I wanted to talk about. Does anyone have any questions about what they can do to be useful in these fleets?
Okay, one very new question. Why cannot the Rorq light the Sino? It's because of the bubble?
No, the bubble lets you light a Sino. There's a module called a Sino inhibitor. It's linked in fleet. So this is normally when someone tackles a Rorqual, first thing you need to do is deploy this structure. Now the Rorqual can light its Sino for a minute, and in fact our SOPs for Rorquals is the moment you're tackled, you immediately light your Sino. If the Rorqual isn't paying attention though, and that minute passes, that module stops them from being able to light their Sino. What we do in that case is we Sino in some carriers, they kill this module, and then the Rorqual lights its Sino. Oh, there is one more thing worth mentioning. Let's say there's a really big gang of bombers kicking around, and we're in Harpies. So one thing we can do is warp the Harpies in at 0. In fact, let's say there's a Stuka fleet. So I don't know if you guys have come across Stuka fleets before. They are super duper scary initiative fleets. So they have commandeses, so they use micro jump fields to bounce the grid. They have bombers who do bombs and they do a lot of DPS, and they have E-war frigates and assault frigates. So if you warp to them at 0, they can chew you up. If you don't touch them, they bounce around the grid, keep shooting at capitals, and just fucking murder capitals. The best counter we've come up with against Stuka fleets, which has worked really effectively in the past, is Harpies. So Harpies have a longer range than Stukas. They can only fire out to 50 kilometers. Harpies can fire out to 80 kilometers. That being said, if they've got bubbles, and they will have bubbles, they'll have dictors. Dictors will bubble up. The friendly FC can now no longer warp to those Stukas at the 50 to 80 kilometers range they need to be at. They can only warp to them at 0, and they land in the bubbles, and it's a lot more dangerous for the Harpies. One thing we can do in these real fast ships is provide warp-ins. So if we see enemies on grid, let's say our friend in the Crow here is an enemy fleet. So what I can do now is position myself maybe 200 kilometers or 150 kilometers on the opposite side of the enemy fleet to the friendly fleet. So let's say the friendly fleet is on the asteroid belt at 0. If I move behind the Crow here, the friendly FC will be able to warp to me at a range and position themselves where they want. So you can position yourself so that the friendly FC can warp to you without getting stuck in a bubble. So right now I'm below them. If they've got a bubble on them at 0, someone could warp to me at 0 and land 100 off them. Does that make sense? It's a little harder to do, but it's a super useful thing you can do while in field. You can fly around, you can provide warp-ins for friendly FCs where they get into the optimal range without landing in bubbles. Something you can't do with probes alone. Any other questions?
You mean like below or like above the bubble?
Yeah, exactly. Just so that from where the friendly FC is to you, there is no bubble in between you. So right now, let's say that battleship was the friendly FC, or the friendly fleet was there, aligned to the enemy, which is the Crow. If the Crow has a bubble up, if they warp to the Crow at 100, like we saw before, they'd actually land at 0. But I'm here chilling, perpendicular to that bubble. I'm currently 100 kilometers off. If they warp to me at 0, they'd land 100 off that Crow and wouldn't get caught in the bubble. The way we beat Stuka fleets is by exploiting the extra range Harpies have, because once we're between 50 and 80 kilometers away from them, we just murder them. We just wreck them. And their job is to try and either be too close or be too far away. So us flying around real fast, providing these warping spots, gives the friendly FC a massive advantage. Because if they're good, they'll have a bubble at 0 on them at all times, and we'll never be able to warp to them.
Do you know what ammo the Harpies have loaded for that range?
It's always spike.
Can you link the ship? Because I don't know what are Harpies actually.
Oh yeah, sure. Can someone link that fit? Has anyone got it?
Yeah, give me a sec.
Thanks. So this is our standard subcap. So we have 2 subcap doctrines for impasse saves. Number 1 is Harpies. So this is what we use for most situations. These are tackle ships. They're small, they're fast. They have kind of 2 modes of operation. So they can either go antimatter and do a little bit of damage close up. So we use this if we're just like swarming over ships and killing them. Or they've got the spike, which is the long range ammo. And this is the one that's actually the useful one in battle because it allows us to pick apart the bombers where the capitals have a harder time killing them. So you've got great range and you're able to kill bombers real nice. The second doctrine is the Rorq. Rorq is a battle cruiser. It's got about 100 kilometer range at the extreme. It's bigger, it's heavier. These are really good if we need to kind of hold grid a bit more. If we need to stay put, we need to project DPS out. It's useful if we're killing things that are like good at killing frigates, like Munins, for example. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mike, staying out.
Is that any better? Can you guys hear me?
On and off.
Hello? I can't hear any of you guys now.
So,
As well.
no, it's working.
Is that
There
working
we
now?
go. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you guys came back as well. I don't know what happened then. It might have been me, I might have been Mumble. Any questions?
I'm looking at this feed you just linked before, this DF odd bird. Like, I'm looking at the rear gun and like its optimal range is 20 kilometers. How is that going to be shoot to 80 kilometers?
The optimal range with spike ammo is not 20 kilometers. Give me a second. It's probably a combination of not having the right ammo and skills. So our test WD Harpy with spike gives, 1 second.
80% optimal range.
Yeah, 72.9 plus 7.5.
And I suppose I'm missing some skills as well.
Yeah, it's probably skills. Yeah, a few skills would affect that. I don't know, can you fly the Harpy? It's probably Caldari ship. Yeah, so you get 10% bonus per level by Caldari frigate bonus.
That's another 50%.
Yeah, it all stacks up real good. Now the actual, Brave actually has two very subtly different fits for the Harpy. The standard test one that we would use in a fleet has 2 mag stabs on the bottom for DPS. One of the ones we run for Impasse has a SIG amp on the bottom, so it actually decreases DPS to increase targeting range a little bit. Not a huge difference. It just means your targeting range goes out a little more. By default, if you don't have links, you've only got a 62 kilometer targeting range. The SIG amp pushes it out a little further. Not a huge deal. It's just a slight tweak we make to the Impasse Harpy. Let me link that. There we go. Cool. Okay. Unless there's anything else, thank you so much for coming out. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Stath.
Thank you very much.
Any more
Yeah,
questions?
thanks.
Always feel free to hit me up. Always happy to talk. Rorq saves.